we're looking at the present state of mining industry in Nigeria. As an expert in that field, I would like you to give us an overview, an assessment of how that industry has been, looking at the present state. Talk to us about the prospects, the resources, and then we'll look at some of the, the effect or the impact on the Nigerian economy since it has been in existence. You have the floor now.
Okay, the prospects are really bright, and I want to reference the former Minister of Solid Minerals, who indicated that Zamfara Gold alone is a $9 billion per annum venture. Unfortunately, that is not controlled by us. That is controlled by international illegal miners. So, with respect to the prospects are there. Resources, yes, the resources can easily be mobilized, but that is if you have the right environment, and that seems to be a challenge, which it should not be, which it should not be. So I hear there's gold in Oshun. I hear there's gold in Undo. I hear there's gold also in Oyo. So the wealth in solid minerals in Nigeria is very significant. But you need to have the right type of government to exploit these resources effectively and efficiently.
For laying the foundation for us discussing about the mining and mineral processing in Nigeria. So you've talked about some locations where we have some of these minerals. You actually talked about gold. What about the other minerals? Are we paying attention to the other minerals that are found or deposited in Nigeria? Why is it just gold amongst the many of them that seem to be like the focus for now?
Well, like I said initially, if the former minister said Zamfara gold alone is a $9 billion, $9 billion, then if you're prioritizing, it looks like gold is on top. I can't say that categorically, but I mean, how much more does oil bring? Over $20 billion, and the Zamfara gold alone, that's Zamfara. You haven't added Oyo, you haven't added Oshun, you haven't added Undo, and you can do $9 billion on that. In addition, the ministry, based on their own information and evaluation, and when I say the ministry, I mean the new minister, Mr. Alake, they have prioritized the 7 minerals, and gold is one of them. So I don't think it will be efficient if we try to discuss all the minerals. Limestone is there, which you know that we're doing fairly better on limestone with our cement companies than with many of the other minerals. So in the 7 minerals they have prioritized, I think gold should be on top. Based on the information from the former minister. I mean, $9 billion a year. Look at what that is going to do to the revenue of Nigeria if we're able to manage that. So you can't start discussing the entire 44. If you dissipate your energy, you may not be able to achieve the quantum of effort you need to benefit more significantly. So I will agree that with the ministry today that they should prioritize. And that prioritization should be based on cost-benefit analysis. Where can we get more benefits with the least investment? That will what I will assume they have done. But they have already determined there are 7 priority minerals they want to exploit. Gold is there, coal is there, limestone is there. I'm not sure I can recall all of them by heart. Thank you.
Right. If you look at mining in Nigeria, it has presented huge resources and opportunity for Nigeria to diversify its economy. But would you say that Nigeria as a nation has maximized these resources as it ought to be? What are the challenges of the missing link?
Well, I think it's obvious we have not managed it well in any way, because if you have Zamfara Gold as a $9 billion per year venture, and it is not controlled by government, when by law it should be controlled by government, then it's another indication of state failure. You know that the United States Council for Foreign Relations has already ranked Nigeria as a failed state. So it's an indication of state failure if a country like Nigeria, with all the revenue challenges, will have a $9 billion venture per annum going on illegally, and we're not able to take control. So fundamentally, if you have bad governance in place, it's going to affect everything. And that's what has happened. We have not in any way managed the solid mineral sector very well. And I mean, this is not the first time we have identified the potentials there. So why does it look like we're starting? We have identified these potentials maybe 20 years ago. Why are we always restarting? We are always restarting because we do it wrong. And why do we do it wrong? We do it wrong because of bad governance and because of corruption. That seems to be clear to everybody. So that's the situation right now. We haven't done it well. We are starting again. The minister is talking about new policies, new regulations, and the revenue mandate. I think we should have gone past that 20 years ago. I mean, don't forget that we used to mine coal in this country. So even when I say 20 years ago, that may be wrong. That may be wrong. Remember the Nigerian Coal Corporation. Coal is in one of the priority minerals now of this new, of Mr. Laki. Coal is one of them. We used to mine tin in Jos. Tin is also one of them in this is new priority list. So we're not doing it right. And when you do it wrong, you get the wrong results. If you want to get the right results, you have to do it right. And if you want to get the right results, you have to use the right people, not cronies, not in-laws, not political fronts or business fronts. So we can't do things wrongly and expect the right answers. As long as we do them wrongly, we're going to get the wrong answers. Thank you.
Can you highlight some of the wrong ways we've been doing mining in Nigeria and what possibly should be the ideal way to have mining in Nigeria?
Well, the first thing is state control. I mean, because that's what the law provides for. So illegal mining, if you're not able to stop illegal mining, that shows your lack of capacity. That also indicates that you're a failed state because you don't have control of your territory. So these things are basic. They're not wishful. It's not I want it to be right. It requires effort. It requires skills. It requires knowledge. It requires consistency. It requires the right policy environment. So if I go to negotiate a mining transaction and all I'm interested is my own equity, personal equity in the transaction, but I'm negotiating on behalf of government, how do you think the result of that transaction is going to be? You can't underestimate the damage that corruption does to you. You can't. And you also cannot claim that you are not aware that Nigeria is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. So we need to be open and clear about these things. They are simple. They are very simple. Thank you.
All right. I'm glad you are also into oil and gas. I would like to have your reaction to this statement or to this report suggesting that the mining industry in Nigeria has been largely dominated by the oil and gas sector to the expense of other resources. What's your reaction to this? Maybe you shed more light on it. This is your feed.
I won't use your choice of words. I won't use your choice of words. I think it was right to prioritize oil. Yes, and look at your revenue. Look at your budgets in the last 50 years. So I think it was right to prioritize oil. I'm not saying it was right to ignore the others, but it was definitely right, in my opinion, to prioritize oil, which is what the country did. We prioritize oil because we saw better prospects. How do you make decisions? Your decisions are generally based on cost-benefit analysis, even your private personal decisions. So prioritizing oil, to me, was right policy, but not diversifying was weakness in leadership, poor vision, corruption, bad governance. Look at the P&ID contract. When we talk about these things, it looks like we're inventing things. Look at the P&ID contract. A band of Nigerians signed away the interest of the country. So that's happening every day. So the only reason you heard about the P&ID contract is that the particular government had particular interest in exposing that one. So otherwise, what happened in the PID contract is pretty standard in Nigeria. It's a very corrupt environment, and corruption is very destructive. So you can't pretend, okay, let the corruption be there, let's still move ahead. That's naive. You need to deal with the corruption issues. The P&ID was going to cost us $10 billion. And every year you keep borrowing. So let's do the right things and get the right results. Everybody else does the right things and they get the right results. Every simple thing becomes very challenging in Nigeria. And we can't keep pretending that these problems are not there. And these problems are problems we have created ourselves. And because some of us are benefiting, we don't want to address the problems. And yet we think that we're going to get right solutions. You can't. Corruption is destructive. Corruption has affected both the solid mineral sector and other sectors. Thank you.
All right. Now, you've talked about corruption. Yes, we understand that corruption is a challenge in Nigeria, but not limited to Nigeria, meaning that it is not particular to Nigeria. And you've also talked about the oil and gas sector. Now, in the midst of corruption, the oil and gas sector have grown over the years and brought lots of gains. So what is it that was gotten right in the oil and gas sector that has not been gotten right in the entire mining sector that Nigeria can do at this point in time?
Well, can do at this point in time, I've talked about restarting. Why do you restart 50 years after? Does it mean you were sleeping for the last 50 years? So, let's start by addressing your claim that corruption is not a Nigerian thing. Every country is not ranked the same way in the Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index. So if you're ranked number 5, most corrupt, you won't go and compare yourself with another country that is ranked number 200 most corrupt. So let's not use those type of arguments that corruption is not a Nigerian thing, because every country is not ranked as poorly as we are ranked. And the P&ID contract is recent. It tells you how corruption has completely disabled us. So going further, I had indicated that I agree with the government prioritization of oil. Yes, I agree with that. And I think that oil has demonstrated its capacity and confirmed that its prioritization was right with the kind of revenue we have got from oil in the last 1970, from the oil boom of 73 till now. I mean, even though we started export in 56, but the kind of windfalls we started having from 73. So in this 70 years of oil, we can see that even though we may not have used the revenue well, we got some revenue. And even though we could have got a lot more if we had managed it better. So, but the prioritization of oil, to me, it was right. And progress requires effort, like I say. It requires vision, it requires knowledge, it requires skills, it requires diligence. So if you are corrupt and lazy, then progress is a challenge to you. So these questions are self-evident in my opinion. Thank you.
All right, talking about control and ownership, constitutionally, as we speak, mining is under the exclusive list. Do you think there's a need to readjust this to give room for flexibility for more private investors to get involved? Do you think, given the realities in the industry or in the market, will the fact that this has been on exclusive list, has it been a blessing or the other way, or is there need for adjustment? What are the merit and then the demerit for it being on the exclusive list?
Thank you very much. I was going to say that's a very tough question until you simplified it by saying what are the merits and the demerits. I think that removing it from the exclusive list will be beneficial, clearly. Because if illegal miners, in Zamfara alone, can be involved in a $9 billion venture, imagine if it was Zamfara state government. So, but let's not go there, even though I agree with you that this may be beneficial. Let's not go there because if you go there, it might turn to another PIB that took you 10 years, and at the end of the 10 years, you passed there something completely different from what you wanted to pass. So let's not go there, because it becomes, from the experience of the PIB, it becomes political, it becomes sectional, it becomes revenue allocation issue, it becomes contentious, and we get nowhere. So why don't we leave it in the exclusive list for now, so that we don't dissipate another 10 years in trying to change the constitutional framework. So let's leave it there for now, not because there's no advantage on the other side, but if we have to pay the kind of cost we paid for the PIB and we're still paying, then it may not be expedient. So we leave it on the exclusive list. That's my opinion, and I think that's clearly justifiable. And we have the federal government to oversee it, like they claim they want to oversee it, like they have failed to oversee it efficiently for 50 years. So the first thing is to ask ourselves, why did we fail for 50 years? And I think I've addressed that. We were successfully mining tin in Jos. We are successfully mining coal in Enugu. And then all of a sudden, what happened? So it's the same issues. It's the same fundamental issues. Governance is a fundamental issue. Leadership vision is a fundamental issue. Corruption in government is a fundamental issue. So to answer your question directly, we should leave it the way it is, because we have noticed that the cost of change for similar ventures, using the PIB as an example, is crushing, is pernicious, is overwhelming. So let's not try, because there's a cost for change, and that's why you do change management. So let's not try to change anything now. Let us just even try to take over from the criminal illegal miners in Zamfara and get the $9 billion per year, gain control of that. Let's even do that. Because even from the way the minister is speaking, he has become bureaucratic about these things instead of being pragmatic. So you will hear stories until he will promise you that in the next 50 years, you will get it right. Then in the next 50 years, you will be interviewing my son, asking him why we have not got it right. Thank you.
Exploration of these minerals. So far, a lot of them are just exported as raw materials. Now, what kind of infrastructure and technology would we require in order to begin processing so we can achieve or get the full gains from them?
Well, it differs from mineral to mineral. I mean, limestone, for example, is principally for cement. And like I said, we've done better on that than in gold Aha. Coal, we used to do well. We now have this situation. And something like coal does not require significant processing because it's just a fuel. The limestone, we transfer it or we use it in the cement making process. Gold has a refining process, but we have to do the evaluation and the economics on that to make sure it's justifiable. Otherwise, we can export the gold and have others do it. You can't do everything. I agree that value added gives you more money, but you also have to do the economics and justify it.
Why has it been so difficult, likely to be difficult to control the activities of these illegal miners in a place like Zamfara, for instance, and then likely in some part of Nigeria?
I think principally it's a weak and corrupt government. And if you had followed the briefing of security chiefs in the National Assembly, you will see that seemed to be their consensus. They talked about military being overstretched with operations in 33 states. 33. And these are operations that are mostly police kind of operations. Because you see, before the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations ranked Nigeria a failed state, these are the indices of failure. You don't have control. That's the principal indices or the principal index. You don't have control of your environment, your territory. There is some international collaboration in the Zamfara or involvement of international criminals in the Zamfara gold illegal mining activity. And these things don't just happen if not that the government is corrupt and weak. And that is why we must get those fundamentals right. Get the right government, get the right policies, and implement those policies effectively. Because if you are not able to control your border, for example, which the security chiefs mentioned, there is a consequence. And what I have noticed in Nigeria is that we don't seem to understand that there are consequences for inefficiency, for deviation, for incompetence, and for corruption. We just think that, oh, with all these things, yes, they've been around, we can still make progress. We don't seem to understand the consequences. You have, like the security chief said, light arms coming in from porous borders. That is going to be detrimental to the security situation. So why are we not able to police our borders? We have borrowed $800 million. That's just one index. When you look at PIB, we just borrowed PID, not PIB, the company that claimed we violated the terms of the agreement, when the agreement was deliberately structured against us by our own people who were supposed to represent us. So there are consequences. If you go and sign an agreement that you're owing me $1 billion, and then when I come to collect it, you start having other stories. So we must get the right people in the right positions. We can't continue with this, anybody can do it. And then they go and fail. Then we replace them with other people who will fail. Then they keep failing.
As a matter of policy,
that's
what areas would you want, would you recommend
that
the government look at to curtail some of these activities that you mentioned? And going forward, how do you think Nigeria should handle the mining? Okay, if we have people already doing it, but not doing rightly or legally. So just recommend policies you think should be made to sanitize or bring sanity into the mining sector.
Blessing, I thank you for that question, because otherwise you wouldn't have brought out what I want to say now. Blessing, no policy, no matter how excellent, will work without integrity. Understand that. And that's what I'm saying, that there are consequences for deviations. There are consequences for corruption. If you followed like I was referring to the security chiefs, if you followed their briefing in the National Assembly, you will see that they're not optimistic, because they also talked about poverty and the effect of poverty on insecurity. So when the foundation is destroyed, let me go religious, what can the righteous do? We're talking about foundational issues. We're talking about lawlessness. We're talking about corruption of public morality. And you think there's no consequence, and you say you want to make policies. What happened with the policies you made 50 years ago? Mr. Lake is talking about new policies, new regulations. What has happened in the last 50 years? Tomorrow you remove Mr. Lake, you put Femi Johnson. He starts with new policies, new regulations. Then you will fail for 100 years after you have failed for 50 years, because you're not willing to address the foundation. So I thank you for this last question. It has brought out that perspective, because maybe I'm not articulate enough to express it. No policy will work in an environment without integrity. None. Go and make it in the skies. It will not work. Integrity is foundational. And that is what we choose to ignore.